All right, today on Country Pocket, we are here with Rachael Kilgour. Her album is called My Father Loved Me, and that's also the title track and the first song you just heard today. Rachel, how did it feel to have your father's love and faith in you?
Oh gosh, what a first question.
And
Um,
we're not going to the shallow end today.
no. Um, yeah, I think it was complicated as the song suggests. It's true. Both of my parents loved me very much, and I felt safe and supported by them. My dad tended to show his love. Um, he kind of triangulated it where he would brag about you while you were in person. He wouldn't necessarily look you in the eyes and say, "Hey, I'm proud of you." He just you could tell he was kind of beaming whenever we were in public and we were doing something new at a recital or a softball game. He did always show up, but like the song suggests, I think it's a little bit of mixed messages when parents love and support us so well, but struggle with their own belief in themselves. And yeah, that is something I also have to work through as an adult myself.
Yeah, when you experience some of those, darker sides of your mentality, do you feel sort of the connection to your father there or an understanding?
Yes. Yeah, I have a lot of empathy for my dad, and I think I feel a responsibility to like the torch has been passed of this struggle with low self-esteem and depression and anxiety, that it's like this is a familial pattern that we have passed on, one after another, and here I am carrying it and trying to make sense of it and talk about it honestly in a way that my dad never did. And I think that takes a lot of power out of it. And yeah, it does. It feels like a little a prayer every time I sing that song, that I am getting better at figuring it out and loving myself.
Yeah. So that's one of the bad things you've inherited from your father. What are some of the good?
um, my dad was yeah, he was very silly. Especially when we were younger. And my dad was a contractor, so he's a very hard worker, and he really took a lot of pride in being helpful and generous and trustworthy in his work, doing more than he got paid for often. And he was really physical. When I was a kid, like a lot of our connection came through playing games, through wrestling, and like giving uh, rides on his shoulders and things like that. I remember playing around with him a lot, quite a lot like that when I was young. Um, by the time I was, I don't know, 10, he had a pretty major accident where he injured his foot, and he had a limp from then on, which kind of he slowly just started having more and more problems with his body as he got older that limited that way of connecting that we did when I was younger. But yeah, I think I am similar to him like that. I connect with people through humor sometimes. I think I'm very deeply feeling, though my dad didn't know how to express it. I think he was a pretty sensitive guy, and I am glad to have inherited that.
I like that. What do you feel like your father might have been capable of had he been able to shake those dark thoughts?
Huh. Um, yeah, huh. That is an interesting thought. I mean, I think part of making this record is to kind of release him from those doubts he had about himself, but also to say that he didn't need to do something extraordinary. Yes, he was held back or in pain sometimes because of the shame that he carried around, but I don't know that his life would have been more worthwhile had he felt very confident and did something big and splashy. Yeah, he kept his head down, but he showed up for his family. He showed up for the people that he loved. Um, I think he just would have been happier, and that would have been a great achievement.
That's probably the greatest achievement. I know from experience, can tell you it doesn't necessarily come easy, but
No.
when you get there, it feels pretty special.
Mhm.
Next song I want to talk about is Dad Worked Hard. Uh, you talked about the limp limiting him. What was it like watching him as he aged and started to slip away?
Uh, it it was really challenging for him. My dad did die of dementia. He had Lewy body dementia, and it was very slow, the progression. It started out like a lot of dementia does, just like a change in his personality that no one could really figure out. Kind of felt like he was being a jerk all of a sudden, and we didn't know why. And and then developed eventually into him losing a lot of these abilities. But I think this song kind of explains how dad was definitely a product of his time. He felt that his self-worth was really tied to his ability to provide for his family, to be physically fit, uh, just to be the guy that takes care of things, takes care of everyone, sacrifices himself. And well, the thing about Lewy body dementia is it attacks both your cognitive abilities and your mobility, your physical mobility. And it doesn't work like Alzheimer's for everyone anyway. For in his case, he never lost sight of who he was, who everyone was, or the fact that this thing was happening to him and that he was humiliated by it, I think. Which is a common thing, I think, for men, especially of that era, aging and just like losing those things that they held on to as the like, this is my reason for being here. Slowly dad couldn't do the physical work he could do. He couldn't he couldn't provide for his family. Like, who, eventually you retire, and then what are you good for? I think, yeah, it was really hard to watch him struggle with it. I think had he accepted it, and it would have been easier, but it was a kind of constant struggle to carry him through and reassure him that we loved him very much still and he had lots to offer, even though he wasn't out chopping the wood anymore.
Yeah, and you also talk about the safety net sort of letting him fall through. What happened there and how did you make it work?
Yeah, I actually think my family did a very good job, and in the end, it was probably best for dad. He stayed at home, and my mom mostly was his primary caretaker, which we were fortunate to be able to do that, even though it was stressful. There was just a moment when we were, figuring out his diagnosis and not knowing how long that was going to last, where we were discussing opportunities like memory care clinics or getting a home health aide and those kinds of things. They get very expensive, and even when you have great health insurance, even when you have a safety net yourself, it can really drain you, especially if your partner is still going to live another 10 to 15 years, and you need to be able to take care of them too. And I just um as a whole, my family was not destitute by any means. We were working class most of my life, but like I said, my dad did a lot of work for free. He did a lot of work for the sake of community, and so in the end, having done physical labor all his life, he was not like wealthy by any means. And I just felt that we were making these decisions about his care based on financial limitation, which felt very unfair. And um, it just, yeah, it left me thinking about, as a whole, across our country, across the world, really, just how we value different kinds of labor, how some skills we feel deserve so much compensation and others are devalued, specifically those that require a lot of physical labor and the sacrifice of body and the quick aging that happens along with that. So yeah, I was just kind of looking at my dad and looking at broader society and how we take care of one another.
Would be nice if we could take care of everyone.
Sure would.
Let's hear Dad Worked Hard and we'll be right back.